Welcome to Students of Aging, the podcast that honors the incredible journeys and stories of seniors growing older. Tune in and become a part of our community as we redefine what it means to age gracefully and purposefully.
Welcome, everybody, to our podcast called Students of Aging. My name is Jeff Young, and I'm a member of the Seniors Advisory Council here at WoodGreen Community Services. Our group is producing podcasts for seniors, by seniors, and about seniors. If you're new, welcome. If you've been here before, well, you know what to expect. Today's podcast is a little bit different. In all of our meetings, all of these terrific stories come up. I remember this, I remember that, I remember. So we thought we would give it a try here. So the title of today's podcast is Anecdotes. I've prepared some topic cards just to motivate our guests and get them going. The first topic is work.
I have tons of work stories. It's hard to, but it's interesting. I think that so many of them are stories that were taken from when I was much younger. And one of the things I did when I was much younger was I had 2 grants that I convinced the government to pay me to show old movies at various different things and to teach film studies. So it was a Young Canada Works program. But the only movies we could get were the ones from the library on 16 millimeter film. So we were very limited to what we got. But one of the films that we did have access to was the 1933 version of King Kong. I would watch King Kong lots of weeks, maybe, 8 times or something like that. So I got that I could not hear the words King Kong without immediately hearing Fay Ray screaming. She would go, ah, ah, ah. So the person I was working with on this film program sent me a book. And in the book, the very first page, if you open it up, pops up. And there is King Kong. It's a pop-up book. So if I put myself beside good old Fay Ray here, I could do the right along with her. But I could never hear the words King Kong, and I don't think of Fay Ray screaming. And that summer, or the 2 summers, where I watched King Kong over and over and over again.
Wow.
Yeah.
In high school, I worked in the toy department at Eaton's in Sudbury, in the basement. Well, what an experience that was. This was before Christmas. This was the Christmas rush, And so in a smaller city, you can imagine toy trains, toy dolls, people getting upset. I'm about 17 or 18. Oh, my goodness, I can tell you. It was really quite an experience. It was my first job ever, so I somehow managed to get through that. And the next spring I went into nurses training.
I worked for an ophthalmologist office, and my very first day, they had one of those plastic runners for carpets, even though we didn't have a carpet. So I sat down, first day, first hour, sat down, tipsy I go, on my back. And I'm going, why am I in an ophthalmologist office? I should be in a surgeon's office. And guess what? They still kept me working there for 12 plus years. Nice. The other one, I'm going to be as discreet as I can. I worked in a laboratory as a receptionist, and many, many years ago, we have a singer who's very involved with the environment and nature.
Tell too much.
No, environment, and he was on a singing tour somewhere where there could be bacterial illnesses, I guess. And working in the lab, we get all kinds of samples. And this nice gentleman just went, here you go. And unfortunately, it was his stool sample. I don't know what came back as the results, but I'm like, wow, this is the job of a receptionist.
I like to think of it as celebrity poo.
Yes,
Yes.
you should have kept it.
Yeah, no.
Well, it could have been parasites.
Well,
It
exactly.
could have
Well,
been.
maybe, yeah.
It could have been, yes.
I have a work story that I've shared with this group before, but I'd like to share it with the audience at large. When I was a kid, I quit high school, and my first job was at the Toronto Star on King Street. I got hired to sort third-class mail. So all this bulk of mail would come in, and I would sort it, and then I would deliver it around the building. They trained me, and it took about an hour to do, and then the next day was my turn. I did the job in 20 minutes. And I went to my supervisor, and I said, "Mr. Gibson, I'm done third-class mail in 20 minutes." One of the guys I worked with pulled me aside and said, "You idiot, it took us 3 years to convince him that the job took an hour." Next day, an hour and a half.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good.
I can't think of anything recent. So this goes back to when I was in my 40s, and my family and I are vacationing in Florida. So we're at Disney World. And of course, we're at the Disney store because everybody goes there. My son is about 5 at the time, and I'm holding his hand, and we're walking along, and I see these men with these huge diamond rings all across their hands. So I turned to my son, Jeff, and I said, "Jeff, that's Liberace." And he says, in a loud voice, "Who's Liberace?" So the second part to this story is my husband decided, well, we have to take a picture with Liberace. So he asked him, and he was quite okay with that. We're all lined up, and my husband's taking the picture, and Liberace's in the middle. And he presses the camera, the button, and it goes click, and nothing happens. So Liberace says in his high-pitched voice, "It works better when the cap is off."
Very good.
On the vein of celebrities and I guess people who are rich, when I was in university, I was an elevator operator at Holt Renfrew. And yes, it's a job that has its ups and downs. I understand that. The bada boom, yes. But this one particular time, the elevator was quite crowded, and there was an older woman came on the elevator, and she was with her daughter, who was well into middle age, like I would say late 50s or something like that. Part of my job as an elevator operator was every floor we went to, I was to announce what was on that floor. And so I got to the floor that was intimate apparel, and I went, third floor, intimate apparel. And this much, much older woman in a very loud, booming voice said, "Muriel, how are you for panties?" So you had this middle-aged woman turn into a 14-year-old in front of all of us, and she went, "Oh, mother." She'd absolutely embarrassed the heck out of her, right?
I'm going to shift us. A wardrobe malfunction.
When I first was promoted at Bell Canada, and I had a job where I had to do a lot of travel, I remember the very first time I was going on a plane, and I thought it was either Ottawa or Montreal. I had bought a new outfit. I thought I looked so terrific. I'd bought an expensive briefcase, thought I looked so terrific. Before the plane, I go into the washroom, I come out, I'm standing there, and everyone's looking at me, and I'm going, "Damn, I'm good." I look the part. Everyone is so lovely. This is so terrific. And this very nice woman comes up to me, and she whispers in my ear, "Your skirt is in your pantyhose."
Oh, no.
Everyone was looking at me because there was my exposed ass for all the world to see because my skirt was in my pantyhose. So I slunk away with my butt to the wall to get back into the bathroom.
I have some sweatpants that I wear, sort of casually. Well, I have some on today. But I was walking down the street to go to No Frills, and the pants almost fell down. Oh. And I was frantically trying to keep my pants up.
Did you have your walker?
Pardon?
Were you walking with your walker?
Yes.
Oh, so that makes it doubly difficult.
Oh my God. So there I am pulling my, stopping and doing all these weird motions under my coat to try and pull my pants up.
Oh.
I thought, okay, well, these are just for the house, not for outside.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Thanks.
I was just going to say that I was quite astonished when I went to my granddaughter's graduation, and here she is in a beautiful dress, wearing these black sneakers, the high ones. Like, I mean, we would never have done
Right.
that, but
That was a choice for her, wasn't it?
oh yeah, it was
Yeah,
a choice.
good.
She wore black sneakers with the gown.
Yeah,
High tops.
beautiful dress, high tops, if you don't mind. Very proud of them too.
Cooking disasters. When I was 13 years old, my parents used to leave me to babysit for my younger sister, and my friend came over, and we liked to cook. So we decided to make caramel corn, and we made the popcorn, and then we melted the sugar and maybe butter in the bottom of one of my mother's pots, and it burnt. And it stuck, and we couldn't get it out. So I took the pot and I threw it in the garbage. My mother came home, of course, the next morning, wanted to know where that pot was. I said, I don't know. And she said, that's my ironclad pot. You know how much that pot costs, Jeffrey? And then I told her it was in the garbage, and that's the end of my cooking.
She forgave you.
Yeah, took a little while.
Because you didn't pay for it, right?
Well, that's why. Yeah.
As Barb knows, I don't cook, bake, nothing. And so we decided to have eggs and bacon. I believe it was, so all of a sudden I'm cooking the bacon, no problem, fine, made dinner. I had put the skillet back on the element that I just used. Thankfully, no fire, but the house was up in smoke. And the smell of bacon lasted days and days and days. So, so now I'm definitely not allowed in the kitchen. Yeah, that was not done on purpose.
No, the empty skillet was put back on this.
Oh, yeah, on the,
So all it would have
So all it would do is the
Just
bacon
burned
fat.
and burned.
Yes.
all the fat burned.
Yes, and then all of a sudden, there goes the smoke detector and trying to fan off. Oh, yes, so it was definitely a disaster.
Okay, well, it wasn't really a disaster.
No, but I'm not allowed in the kitchen anymore.
That's not true. That's not true.
Perfect.
Does anybody have a doppelganger?
No.
Is that a person that looks exactly like you? Oh, actually, yes. I'll tell you what. You tell your story first,
Okay.
and I'll tell you mine.
It goes way back. It's another Florida story, but without the kids. So my husband and I were in Florida, and we met this other couple on the beach, and we decided that the four of us were going to go out for dinner. So we go to this, I call it a roadhouse or whatever, and they're, Florida, I mean, they're feeding you at 5 o'clock
Right.
in the afternoon because you're all old, and we were middle-aged at the time. So, but we're all lined up. There's a lot of people waiting for the restaurant to open. So along comes the waiter. So I look at his badge and I say, Scott, how long do you think it'll be before we get seated? And he looked at us and he ushered us in, the four of us. And all the other people are standing there. So we thought, well, that's kind of nice. And then there seems to be a buzz around the restaurant. Didn't know what it was, didn't pay any attention to it. And before you knew it, the manager came along and looked directly at me and said, and how are you doing today? The servers were going crazy because they thought I was his wife. Now, they would have seen her often. They had a home in Chicago, and that day she flew back to Chicago. So I never got to meet her. But the manager's looking at me very intently, and when I heard the whole story, I thought, you mean you can't figure out if she's your wife or not? It was kind of really strange. When the story came out, he said, I had to phone my wife in Chicago to find out whether she was really there. But I can't imagine that the staff and the manager, and it was his wife, thought I was her. Never know the end of that story.
What did you get free dinner?
No.
They should have just comped that dinner for you. That's all there is to it.
I wasn't the real deal.
Yeah. I had never really heard of this really happening with people that look exactly like you. And the same man who gave me the book and I taught film studies with, I would say a month ago, he sent me an email, and in it he said, I never knew you were at the 1988 Oscars. And there's a picture sitting behind Glenn Close. There's a picture of Glenn Close, and he's circled the woman behind her. And it looks exactly like me.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, like, so they always say there's a double out there, but obviously she gets around better than I do.
Hi, well, my name's Mary, but for, 2 or 3 years in my early 20s, I was living in Montreal, and I worked in several different places, and everywhere I went, they called me Barbara. And I don't have a Barbara in my name. I have a Barbara who's a friend.
Yeah.
But that felt like the strangest thing to me. Oh, I thought you were Barbara. No, not Barbara. So there's obviously a Barbara out there who looks like, or was a Barbara out there who looks just like me. Weird.
Wow.
My doppelganger story in reverse.
Yeah. How about nicknames? Any unfortunate nicknames?
Yes. You know, there was a movie once called Sadie Thompson.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what they used to call me in high school.
The heat is on, the heat is on. You better not get near my lips tonight. I've got a kiss like a flame.
My dear, why were they calling you Sadie Thompson?
Because I was developing.
Oh, I was going to say, wasn't she a lady of ill repute?
Yes.
Yes.
I wasn't a lady of ill repute,
Especially not in high school.
but I was developing, and that was an attraction. So that's how I got.
And I guess Sadie Thompson, she was well endowed.
Well, I think it was a story written by Somerset Maugham.
Oh, okay.
And she was on an island of some sort. And the local vicar or missionary was quite disturbed at her antics.
To New Caledonia to carry on your trade.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm talking about why you had to leave Honolulu. You're a prostitute.
And as it turns out, in the end,
Come near me.
Nothing but a prostitute. But you are a filthy prostitute.
he had an affair with her.
Oh, my.
He was attracted and didn't like it. Didn't like being attracted, thought it was against his morals, but he couldn't resist. So it was Rita Hayworth.
Okay. Well, that's
Yeah.
quite complimentary.
How did you feel about that nickname?
I didn't really like it, and that's when I recognized that, because women had breasts, that there was going to be attention.
Yep.
Not of the best kind, because they didn't know what else to say.
Mm-hmm.
But there we are. Yeah, that was my nickname. That was my nickname at the time.
I call my sister Marcy Sadie
No, really?
when she got married.
As in Sadie Mary?
Sadie, married lady from
Oh, yes.
Funny Girl. Yeah.
That's the song.
Sadie, married lady, see what's on my hand.
Yeah. And it stuck all these years.
I had a couple of nicknames. My father named me Old Bean. I think that's a very, maybe British, I don't know. Sounds very British.
That was respectful, though, wasn't it?
It was kind of affectionate, yes.
Yeah.
He also used to call me Maria. Wake up, Maria, because he, as a child, had spent a number of years on the Mexican-Texan border.
Oh, wow.
And picked up the whatever dialect they were
very
speaking
cool.
down there, and in fact acted as an interpreter for his dad when he was hiring farmhands. So some of it he retained, and that was me. Being Mary, I was Maria. Oh, I had an ugly one in high school. There was this boy, and he was pipsqueaky. He's dead now. Rest in peace. But he called me Moose. And I was so hurt. I was all of 5'1" and 105 pounds, but I was still bigger than he was. So he called me Moose. That one really, really hurt. So when I read his obituary,
Moose now.
yeah, really.
My bad nickname was Penguin.
Oh.
And I guess because maybe I shuffled like a penguin, I don't know. It's funny, you forget about these nicknames, and when you mentioned that, I went, oh my goodness, I was called Penguin, because I guess I shuffled.
Well, that's what we all do now, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is.
One of my in-laws used to call me Maggie, and now I have a granddaughter called Maggie.
Nice.
There was a lot of teasing, and what I didn't understand as a child, that the boys that used to tease me when I was in elementary school wanted to date me when I was in high school. And I was really turned off by that because I thought, well, how can you be so cruel on the one hand? One boy used to threaten to beat me up after school. I was called skinny. So it's a dilemma. Boys will be boys.
Unfortunately,
They grow up.
yes. Most of us.
Yes.
Most of us.
Sure. I hope so.
It was funny when Mary was saying about may he rest in peace, because I worked with a woman who had a boss, and she always referred to his name, and I have to do it so that I'm not using his actual name. Anybody give me two men's names, like the first and the last name, and I'll do it.
Henry Jacobs.
Henry Jacobs. So I was like, Henry, may he rot in hell, Jacobs. And it was as if may he rot in hell was his middle name, because every time, except of course when he was around, that is how she would say, oh, and then Henry, may he rot in hell, Jacobs, did such and such.
How about language gaffes? I know we have a couple of people who were raised in bilingual communities.
I guess this is sort of a little bit of a language thing. I worked originally in the business office at Bell Canada, and you were always to say, Bell Canada, Miss McCutcheon speaking. Bell Canada, Miss McCutcheon speaking. You would say this hundreds of times a day. So one time I'm going along, and I said, Bell McCutcheon, Miss Canada speaking. And the woman on the other end of the line went, huh? And then I said, did I say what I think I said? And she said, yeah, you did, sort of thing. So that's my little getting the words
I
wrong.
was married to a French-Canadian gentleman for a number of years, and when I was learning how to speak the language, and anyway, I had this great passion, a huge passion for French. I have no idea why. When I was a little girl, growing up in a very Anglophone community. Anyway, I used to pick up these things from his mother, and I'd say, what does this mean, and what does that mean? And he used to say, shh, not everything you hear home is good. So I was lucky. I would always vet my language through him.
I was never very good at French in high school. I failed every year. So every year I was put back a year. When I quit high school in grade 13, the principal suggested that I finish off my grade 12 French in night school. Well, sure enough, the night school teacher was the day school teacher. And I was determined to impress her. And at one point we were doing vocabulary, and she asked if anyone knew the French word for chicken. And I threw my hand up, oh, miss, I know. And she said, okay, Jeff. I said, chalet.
Very good.
Oh, that's very good. Chalet.
Chalet. Yeah. Because she gave me a 49. Oh. Yeah, she was that miserable a human being. She gave me a 49. We went back to see my principal at the end of the school year because I'd been out working. And he said to my mother, Mrs. Young, your son knows as much French now as he's ever going to know. And he raised it to a 51 or something. Can you imagine how miserable that woman was.
From here on forward, you always would say her name is Miss, may she rot in hell.
Yes, that's right. I'll remember that. Yes.
I have a story from childhood that I didn't tell that I just remembered now. Well, I grew up in this, I think both Jania and I sort of grew up roaming around the outdoors. We did things our parents would have been astounded. But anyway,
As long as we were home for dinner.
as long, yeah. We just sort of ran free and wild. But I think it was about when I was 6. One of the gang got a hold of a cigarette
Nice.
and lit it, and we all took several drags. Well, I was sick for a week.
Yeah.
We had the cigarette, and we were trying to smoke it because all the adults smoked.
That's right.
So we thought that's the thing to do. Well, it didn't work for me. I was sick. I felt awful.
Yeah.
And I was sick for a week.
Did you ever smoke later in life?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so you couldn't have been that sick.
We couldn't afford cigarettes. So we used to smoke dry grass. Oh. Well, you can imagine what a disaster that was because we'd light up like a dried up, whatever you call the grass, long grass, and set fire to a field. So I run home and I say, Mom, call the fireman. The field is on fire. And she said, you started it. You finish it.
It is. When I was in Tanzania, a friend of mine, we ran into some people and he said to them, Hakuna Matata.
Hakuna Matata. What a wonderful phrase. Hakuna Matata. Ain't no passing craze. It means no worries for the rest of your day.
And I said to him, Rob, what are you doing? That's from a cartoon.
Exactly.
And they all looked at him and said, Hakuna Matata. What did I know?
But it's a real saying.
It is real. It's yeah.
No worries.
Yeah.
No worries.
What does it mean?
No worries, be happy. It's just a greeting. Yeah, I didn't know. I thought he was quoting cartoons to kind of start an international incident. How about supermarket adventures?
I ran a nursing home for 4 years for 8 autonomous seniors. And my grocery order was astronomical, let me tell you. I used to go to, it was Super C because it was in Quebec, and I'd have 3 big goddamn baskets full of stuff because I go once a month and buy everything. And then I used to have the guy deliver it to my garage. It would take me most of the afternoon sorting everything out and putting it away. It would cost me over $1,000 or more a month, to feed these gals. I had 7 women and 1 man.
Wow.
He told me he had a double bed in his room, in a big room. And he said, Mavis, if you want to get another senior in, I will share my room.
Not bad, you mean?
Yeah. Another thing about the seniors that I thought was fun, we did a lot of good things. I lived across the street from a park that at Halloween they used to decorate for everyone. And so anyway, for Halloween, my gals were all dressed up with funny noses and wigs, and they were all sitting around the table. So I went outside and I asked parents if it was okay if the kids could go in and say hello to my gals.
Nice.
And oh my God, it was so nice to see their faces, and even the kids enjoyed it, Yeah, it was a special time. I did it for 4 years. It was special.
How about do-it-yourself gone wrong?
My sister's going to kill me for this one. It was a do-it-yourself. Years and years ago when we were little kids, we belonged to the figure skating club in our hometown. And we would be at the rink maybe 3 or 4 times a week. and we had to keep up our skates. And oh gosh, I've never let her forget this. And so it meant frequently polishing the skates and buffing them up. And she got tired of doing that every time we went skating. So she went to Dad's workbench and put her skates in the vise. You know, that she could put her blade, the blade of her skate, tighten the vise, and she painted her skates. It seemed like a really good idea at the time. And did she,
What color was it?
oh, white. She painted them white. So did she ever get in trouble for that? Poor girl.
How about technology?
I am not technically savvy at all. And poor Barb hears all the time, why do they always change? Why? I'm old school. Don't change. And what happens is if they've changed it too much, I just pick up the computer and I go, here, Barb, you fix it. So poor Barb's going, what's wrong with it? I don't know. It's just broken. It's not working. Well, how am I supposed to fix it? I don't know. I don't care here. So poor Barb has to deal with all my technology issues, which, as I'm getting older and older, is more and more.
Well, Mary knows a guy.
I do. Yes. Oh, yes. And I nearly called him a couple of days ago when I did my income tax online, something I've been doing for probably 15 years. But they seem to be making these forms more and more complicated every year. And I'm less and less tolerant of some of the things that never bothered me before. And when it comes to technology and they keep changing it and they keep trying to do things for me and I don't understand what they're doing, and they say, well, if you need help, we'll just click here. Or right, is there somebody here online? Well, okay, I'm nuts now. I'm insane now, and I nearly called him. And the irony of that is that I'm the one who taught him how to use those online forms.
Tell us who the guy is.
The guy's my son, of course.
I have a story. I was trying to upload a new program on the computer.
Oh, boy.
Upload now. I tried, and I failed. It was so frustrating. I had to actually bring the computer into the store and they fixed it up. But please, I don't know about anybody else uploading programs, but get someone professional to do it.
When my husband and I split up, I was working for 13 years in a private doctor's office because I couldn't work at the hospital. I'm a retired nurse. I couldn't work nights and weekends, so I worked there for 13 years. And then when I was in my 40s, I decided to go back to the hospital. So I was working at the Montreal Children's. And God darn computers! They wanted us to book appointments for patients. On the computer. Look up. I used to give it to the secretary all the time. I mean, like, I only got my first computer at home in the 90s, it was quite something. Yeah. Like the doctor's office, everything was written down. That was very hard. Mm-hmm. That was harder than going back in nursing after being away for so many years.
How about partying gone wrong?
I had a friend who needed a date for, I think it was a wedding. And so my friend had a friend. So it was a guy that had a friend who was a guy. And he wanted to be fixed up with my friend who needed this date for the party, for the wedding. So I was fully warned, and I warned her that the friend that no one had actually met except the middleman sort of thing was an undertaker. Now, my family came from, my father managed a cemetery. We were always taught that undertakers were incredibly funny people because they have to be so somber all the time. So they're a lot of fun, and that they were just like doctors, so to think nothing of it sort of thing. So again, I passed this along to my friend. He is an undertaker, but here's the situation. husband. So we all go off to this wedding or whatever, and then she grabs me and she said, "What did you fix me up with?" And I'm going like, "What are you talking about?" She said, "We were just dancing." And he just told me, "There's only two things in life I really like to do. I like to play the piano and I like to embalm."
At the same time.
Hey, that would have been interesting. And so it was like I'm going like, "Hey, I didn't know him. I never met him." Sort of. Can you imagine? Only two things in life I really enjoy:
I guess
playing
there
the
was no
piano.
second date.
No second date. No, I don't think there would ever have been a second date.
Once I went to a New Year's Eve party, and the only drink that I had all evening was Pernod.
Oh.
Never again. I was totally wasted. How I got home, I don't know. I think I probably took a taxi. But I thought, what? And the next day was a disaster. So that was my over partying. And I haven't tasted it since then.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't do this anymore
Yeah, right.
because I can't.
But
Back when I was in I had just turned 30, and my husband got a contract to do some work in North Africa. So we went and lived in Algeria for several months. We were in a camp, a construction camp, and there wasn't a lot to do for us, so we made our own fun. And we had parties, and people had taken their stereos, and Cat Stevens got a lot of playing.
Now I've been happy lately, thinking about the good things to come, and I believe it could be something.
And we did imbibe a little too much. Not on occasion, all the time. All the time. And I do remember one night him actually throwing me over his shoulder and taking me back to our trailer. And I didn't want to go home. I was so I tried to get up and walk back, and my legs weren't there anymore. So I never did that again. Not quite that bad. But then I found out all that had happened the next day because everybody else had a memory. So I resolved from then on not to drink with anyone who had a memory because
good rule.
I was mortified, really. To be honest, I was mortified.
Thank you.
I never was much of a drinker. My husband was an alcoholic, so somebody had to be the driver. Anyway, I had a cousin and his wife. They lived north of Montreal, an hour and a half drive. Anyway, my husband and I went up to visit, and she said, "Mavis, you make me feel like a shit." She said, "I like to drink, and you won't have anything." So I said, "Okay, I'll have a drink with you." She got out gin. Okay, and with a little bit of orange juice. We drank half a friggin' bottle. I mean, I don't drink. Oh my God, was I sick. Anyway, my husband and I had to drive home, so he brought all kinds of Kleenexes in the car because he thought I was going to be sick. Apparently, he put me over his shoulder to carry me up the stairs. And next morning, I was sick, and I find the blanket rolled up in the closet. To this day, there's no way in hell I'll ever look at Jim. No. But, it goes to show you. I still feel sick thinking of it.
I think we've all had that moment when you're younger and you think, is this what alcohol poisoning feels like? Like it's just, you're just going like, yeah, like let the earth swallow me up right now sort of thing.
Yeah. Anybody have a favorite all-time anecdote that they want to share?
I have something that I always remember. I was about 16. I was sitting in the back of the Manhattan restaurant, a Greasy Spoon Diner in Sudbury. And I had a package of Black Cat cigarettes, corked it, and some fries and a Coke. And I lit up a cigarette and thought I was the coolest kid in town. I was just all by myself, red vinyl seats. That scene just burns into my mind. I thought, wow, isn't this something?
Yeah.
Too cool for school.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. And this has been a blast, sharing these stories.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
This podcast is brought to you with assistance from the Government of Canada. Please tune in again. The podcasts are available both for video and for audio. If you've enjoyed yourself, check us out, and we'll see you again next time.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more amazing content every week. If you want to catch more of our adventures, check out the videos right here on our YouTube channel. And remember to leave a comment below. Let us know what you think or what you'd like to see next. We love hearing from you. Catch you in the next one.